Hello, everyone, and on behalf of us all in the Living Values Education, British Isles, a very warm welcome to our webinar today by David Rowse. And our theme for this evening, ethical sense and moral sensibility, doing the right thing for good reasons. Now, for those who don't know David, he's got such a distinguished career. And he first started after national service working with youngsters, disadvantaged youngsters in Birmingham, and set up a charity in 1990 called Values Education for Life. So in many ways, he's the founder president, not only of that organization, but one of the fathers of values education here in the British Isles. So we're delighted to welcome him here this evening. He's also taught at the University of Birmingham, Chair and Vice President of the Values Education Council of the UK, and editor of Ethos, which is a very special magazine that David created from his own wisdom, promoting the importance of spiritual, moral, ethical, and cultural education in schools. I could speak much more about David, but I'd love David now to welcome him formally, to introduce himself a wee bit more, and to enjoy his talk, Doing the Right Thing for Good Reasons. David, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, being very old-fashioned, a little bit about me first, perhaps, and thank you for that introduction, which was very much appreciated, and I think sort of a little bit grandiose, because I've already said that I was born in 1939. My early years were during the Second World War. So I grew up really with the really severe shortages that we all experienced after the Second World War, which we got through, as you do when you have to, but were quite depriving in some senses, but quite useful in many others, because it made us very resilient, in the sense that we were able to take, I think, a great deal of care for ourselves without relying so much on other people as would appear to be the case perhaps today. So I went to a C of E primary school, Abbey Green in Nuneaton, went on to King Edward VI School in Nuneaton, on to art school after that, which is a little bit unusual. So I'm not your academic type, and therefore I don't think in straight lines. I think in whirly lines rather than straight. And usually, quite frequently, in fact, outside the box rather than in. So I can sometimes come up with some outrageous things, which people will be absolutely outraged by. Not usually though, but nevertheless come up occasionally with some ideas which perhaps other people haven't thought of, partly because of my training and partly because of my experience, which then went on. I went into the army, I got called up as part of national service, spent 2 years in Germany, very interesting, very informative, came back and started teaching, although I had no intention whatsoever to teach. I came back and I was advised, coming out of the army, if you want a job, write to Birmingham, and they are so desperate for teachers, they will take virtually anyone. Well, I got art qualifications to teach, so I wrote, and lo and behold, the reply came back, yes, we will pay you to actually do a job at Hastings Road Secondary Modern School for Boys. Wow. That was an experience. I turned up the first day and the deputy head showed me to the head's office and introduced me, then took me along the corridor into a room where there were 32 young men aged 14 glaring at me, waiting. And the deputy head teacher said, here's the key to the stock room. There's your class. Get on with it. That was induction in those days. So I got on with it and found that I really enjoyed it. And from there, over a period of time, moved from art to the pastoral system, and then became coordinator in a large comprehensive school for what was then personal, social, and moral education, later changed to personal, social and health education, psychology taking over. In that respect, some good points to it. Unfortunately, I also feel some bad ones. I was there for some considerable amount of time, thoroughly enjoyed the experience, started a very, I thought, interesting project called Urban Renaissance, which introduced those young people at the school who really didn't want to be there into a different experience of community service. And I thought went very well. And in fact, other people did too, but cuts came along and they wanted to get rid of it. Well, you know what it's like. We're all Mardis when it comes down to it. So when your little precious bundle of joy that you put together is suddenly cut, you're not very happy. And at that time, early retirement came up. I was 50. I'd also, incidentally, been to the States and spent about a week, a little bit more than a week, working with Larry Kohlberg at a school called the Roosevelt High School in the Bronx, New York. And that, again, was very enlightening and awakening in the sense that I saw possibilities there in terms of morality, helping the young people I've been working with move from where they were to somewhere which would be better for them. So I came back, middle life crisis over, and enthused by this. Having had my little project cut, sought early retirement at the age of 50, and they were giving it to virtually anybody, including me. So I got out of teaching officially at the age of 50, and it gave me the opportunity to start Values Education for Life, which I established as a charity, a registered charity, and started working with the same group of youngsters, but concentrating on them and their development rather than the whole package of school and the curriculum. And as they say, I've never looked back. I've had a wonderful life, a wonderful time, a wonderful experience, and I'm very thankful for it, and thankful now for each day that goes by, and each day giving me a little more of an insight into what life might just be about and the purpose and reason why we as human beings might be enjoying or not the experience of life, and from year to year going through, trying to make our way, trying to journey through life to make some kind of reason and create some kind of purpose, so that it gives us a feeling of self and value and being of service to others. Spiritually, and I'm not very good at the spiritual world as such, spiritually there have been two very important occasions, I think, very recently. One has been the death of Queen Elizabeth II and her funeral, which I found very moving and very pertinent, as, in inverted commas, ordinary people waited for ages, queued up for 12 or more hours, able to present their last respects to her. And that was very moving. And I felt very spiritual. And the other thing is, of course, the coronation. And we now have Charles III, the King. But it wasn't the pomp and ceremony that really affected me. It was the content of the coronation rituals and the fact that there's still a strong belief in service, of giving, of promoting what you do to others. And I do believe that that is a fundamental need in people, not endlessly introverting to me, my problems, oh dear, nobody loves me, nobody takes care of me, and so on, but looking outward and toward other people and what can you do for them through empathy and helping, volunteering, working with. So as usual, I probably pontificated far too much, but yes, I'm here and very grateful for still being here in this strange experience called life. Aware of the fact that it's very strange because it has a beginning, and for all of us it has an end, and yet there are elements of it which are not beginnings and ends, but appear to go on forever. As they said, the Queen is dead, long live the King. Goes on forever. So my talk today is a little bit about that, and trying to make sense of where we are and what we need to live a life which to some extent is meaningful and gives us a sense of purpose and is satisfying in the sense that we feel that we have done something worthwhile. So I very much like to go on to my presentation, if that's possible. I need to do a little bit of fiddling here. If you'll just excuse me a moment. And I think I need to be given the ability to actually start the, or do I?
No, you should still be co-host.
Right, okay, well, let's start then. Can everyone see that?
No.
Right. It's because I think I haven't got the sign up again for sharing. And I apologize for this. We did rehearse it earlier on, but like all technology, it's not the easiest thing to... No, it's working on screen for me, but you're not receiving it because I'm not sharing it, I think. Hang on a moment, let's take this off if I possibly can. And I think is it up now? It says I'm screen sharing.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it is.
Right, okay. Well, I did explain earlier on that I was trained initially as a graphic designer, if the truth be known, not an artist, although we did do obviously art, painting, sculpture, and so on and so forth. But nevertheless, my training, early training, and therefore influence in the way that I thought was through the arts. And it's very different to science and mathematics, for example. It's not so logical, perhaps, but you make sense of life in a different kind of way to the way that many people would in terms of pure logic, reason, and so on and so forth. So, is our planet unique? What I find about the strange situation I find myself in, other people don't. They just take it for granted. Perhaps that's overemphasizing that, but nevertheless, is our planet unique in any way? Is humanity, different in any way to all other life forms that we are aware of? And you can see there, morals. You can read it better than I can. Is it close to our conception of the meaning of life? Is moral goodness what gives each of us a sense that we are worthy human beings? We are strange creatures because we are able to, so it would appear, so I'm told, we are able to make value judgments about what is right or wrong within the whole universe, with life only on the earth, as far as we know up to date. There are creatures, there's life, and one of those parts of life is humanity. And we are the only creatures, so I'm told, that are able to tell the difference between right and wrong. We have been gifted this ability to do so. Now, wow, that is unique and that is remarkable. And where on earth did that one come from? So is our planet unique? Well, I'm told it is. If it were a bit closer to the sun or a bit farther away, no life wouldn't exist here. We've got an atmosphere, one of the few that has. We've got all the bits and pieces that we need for life. We've got an ozone layer. I know we're destroying these things, but we'll wake up, hopefully, before we actually get to the final point. Earth's location in the solar system, its atmosphere containing oxygen, and its water cycle have made life possible to exist on Earth. And it's the only place that it happens. Wow. We are unique. Our Earth is unique. In the whole of the cosmos, as far as we are aware to date, there's not one other existence which is the same as ours. I find that amazing. So there's our Earth. Are we different in any way? Well, you know, you scratch your heads, males, females. Incidentally, can I share another thing with you? We spent billions of years, as I understand it, developing this spacesuit called our body to carry us around in this world. It works pretty well. It's got deficiencies because it doesn't last forever. But nevertheless, we have ways and means of making sure that we in some way continue through children. So there are male and female. That fits in with the rest of the world and our Earth and our experience of how creatures create, procreate, carry on, continue. But nevertheless, you know, we've been very successful so far. And yet Charles Darwin, even in 1871, agreed that the most significant thing about humanity is this ability to make a distinction between right and wrong, good and bad. We take it for granted. And even where they come into conflict with, as you've seen recently, people are quite happy to glue themselves to roads or do other strange and weird things if they feel sufficiently strongly about it. And that is a moral, to them, it's a moral issue. So it's a driving force which is extremely powerful. And we've got this ability to make value judgments. Doing some counseling and mentoring, I was always told, do not be judgmental. Human beings are endlessly judgmental about everything all the time. It's one of the things that we do, and we spend a great deal of time doing. We're very good at it, whether in fact we're very effective, but we spend a lot of time certainly doing it. And we have this capacity to work out very often intuitively whether things are going okay or not, whether people are behaving themselves or not, which again is quite strange. Ethical sense codes. These are codes that come from life experience within the community. And those experiences that we've enjoyed or not at an individual level, we combine and we come up with codes of this, laws, what you should do collectively and so on. But these are not the same as making judgments about morality, which we have this internal ability to do. I did this some time ago, and it's so complex that, you know, I mean, I can talk you through it, but it would take about the next 5 hours to do so. If you would like me to send you a copy, I'd be only too pleased to. And if you can make head or tail of it, then I'd be even more delighted to receive your opinions. But basically, we've got 2 parts to the moral life that we lead. Ethical sense. Ethical sense are all those things which collectively, culturally, as a society, as groups of people, we put together to try to make life more, well, to make life better, putting it bluntly. So, for example, we've got laws, we've got codes of practice, we've got all kinds of things. And I'll go through some of these with you, because some of these we need to be able to separate out from what is moral and what is not. So civilities. Well, yeah, civilities, you know, being nice, I would question, is being nice being moral? I don't think that the 2 things are exactly the same, but that is questionable. Decorum, doing the right thing and being able to speak properly. Queen's English, standards and all that stuff, you know, in schools and so on. Well, that's questionable, I think. Decency, well, what do you mean by that? That is cultural, even class-ridden perhaps. Decency, what do we mean? Etiquette. Do you know how to use the correct utensils when you're eating? Do you know in what order? If you're dining out, do you know which glasses to use for water, which for white wine, which for red wine, and so on and so forth? Again, these are not necessarily to do with morality. These are codes of practice which come from authorities, which lay them down, and really, although they might make life for some people a little bit better, I don't think actually come within the moral domain at all. Fitness, yeah, it's important. Health, very important, but virtues, yeah, we'll come on to virtues in a bit. Being nice, niceness. Niceness is not the same as being moral. Niceness is not telling people the truth necessarily. You might lie intentionally for good, and that's understandable. If somebody looks absolutely awful and they say, how do I look? And you say, well, you know, you don't look too bad, knowing that they look awful. That probably is, as they say, a white lie, because you're trying to help somebody through life when they're looking for reassurance. But niceness, I would question. Standards, I certainly would. Customs, we've always done it this way. Well, it doesn't mean you always have to do it that way. Courtesies, yeah, courtesies are good, but are they moral? Are they about the moral domain? Rituals, rites, manners, the right manners. And manners change, don't they? When I was young, the saying was, children should be seen and not heard. Now it's, we're all listening to you all the time. So there's a huge shift in the way that children are perceived. Children, when I was a child, we didn't exist. These days, children appear to be at the center of the focus of a great many people, and quite rightly so, because what we've learned is, as a child, as the early years, these are extremely important to the future development of that person as an ethical person. So yeah, I'm not going to go on with these anymore, but you can see that we get all these things thrown at us and we're told you have to conform to all of these. They're not all to do with the moral domain, I don't think. Some are, some aren't. Those that are perceived to be, that just have some moral content, are classified as ethics, and they are kind of joined together, and we adopt those as being ethical, codes of contact, what you ought of conduct, what you ought to do and how you ought to do it, are deemed to be extremely important, but sometimes they fit within the moral domain, sometimes not. And how do we check this out? Well, my own view on this is we have this innate ability, which we've shown, I hope, earlier, or at least suggested earlier, that we can make choices, judgments between what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad. And so, for example, if an ethic comes up, which is contrary to what most people feel about what's right and wrong, there is a disjoint there, which creates tension, and you get tension within society. And at the moment, again, we have this because we've got a relatively small group of people who genuinely and sincerely believe that the earth is in real danger, and they may well be right, and therefore their moral instinct, their sensibility tells them they've got to do something about this, whatever it takes. Not everybody agrees with that. That leads to tension and misunderstandings and the kind of situation which is currently developing. That's my view. Could be wrong, could be right, but that's my view. Anyhow, I'm going to leave this because you could go on forever about the difficulties which we've created for ourselves with all these different codes and practices, and you ought to do it this way and it's wrong to do it that way. So, you know, again, you can scratch your head about all of this. I thought this was going to be easy. Morality is not easy. It's not an easy option, but we are caught up in it because it is part of life. You can't easily opt out. And how on earth, etc. Don't despair. Let's just recap. We live on a planet which is the only one in the whole universe. And it's a special planet because it's the only one which is in the ideal place to support life. And we send spaceships off here, there, willy-nilly, everywhere, and they all report back. We think there could have been life, there might have been life, there might have been water under the ice cap, and so on and so on and so forth. But we have not come back, nothing's come back to show conclusively there is life elsewhere in the universe, let alone the cosmos. And we can make decisions, judgments about right and wrong, which is strange when you come to think about it. Where did that one come from? And we've got a little bit of utilitarianism here. The greatest good, in fact, it's the greatest happiness, but the greatest good, Mill and Hume, etc., the greatest good for the greatest number. So a kind of democratic, the more goodness, quantify goodness how you wish, but the greater goodness that we can provide within life for the majority, the vast majority of people, the better. But that's a difficult equation when you come down to it, to actually work out. That is quite hard. That really is. So have we got some examples of this? Well, I think this is quite poignant and quite powerful. Dear teacher, I am a survivor of a concentration camp. My eyes saw what no man should witness. Gas chambers built by learned engineers, children poisoned by educated physicians, infants killed by trained nurses, women and babies shot and burned by high school and college graduates. So I am suspicious of education. Education on its own, knowledge and learning on its own, can be a dangerous thing. We know at the moment we've got difficulties emerging around artificial intelligence. You know, we have all this progression, wonderful, marvelous, but we do need we need to be wary of it and to consider it carefully within the context of humanity, the earth, the universe, and biology. You know, and these people might have been within the context of fascist Germany, good parents, husbands and wives, good citizens paying their dues, playing a full part in society. They might be nice to know etiquette, they know how to behave in society and so on. But would you judge them as being moral human beings? And I think most people since then have said, no, there was a huge deficiency in humanity there that allowed them to do what they did. They were not moral people. So what do we need for our journey to become a full human being and make the right decisions for good reasons? Well, here we are, we're plonked down, aren't we? I can't speak for you, but did you get a form to fill in before you were born? And did it say, what would you like to be like? Height? Well, I would put 6'4". Hair, blonde hair. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Eyes blue. So you're looking at your ideal. But did anybody ask you? I would have liked to have had an intelligence quotient of about 3 million and would have found life pretty easy, maybe, I would have hoped. But you don't, do you? You get what you get and you make the most of it. And you've got goody bits. But life isn't fair in the sense that you don't choose it. You don't choose, for example, to be disabled. That's who you are. You don't choose to be male or female. That is who you are biologically. You might want to change it later, but that's a different matter altogether. You know, at birth, you get what you get. And there is an idle male in my mother's womb, everything found, fed, waste materials got rid of, and so on and so on and so forth. I was a happy chap. And then suddenly, out of the blue, nobody said to me, would you like to be born? Suddenly, bang, there you are, out in the world, on your own, trying to sort of cope with things. And no training for it, no preparation, no counselling in the womb. You just get what you get. What a surprise, and how unfair. I always say to young people, life does not come with any guarantees, and it's a high-risk occupation. Take that on board and think about it carefully. What do you need? Well, if you're going on a journey, you need an excellent map, which is ethical sense. This is what people have drawn up from their own experience from years before, and they put it down on paper, advising you about what makes life easier, what makes it more difficult, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of info out there which will advise you about what you need in order to make your journey through life really worthwhile. Ethics, which is that element of morality, and psychological study, the philosophical. Now, I have to confess that I never trained to be a philosopher, and I find philosophy extremely hard, partly because of the way it's written, and partly because there are so many different people with different concepts of what it is. So it's so easy to get confused. What I need is the Janet and John version. of that and psychology, which would make life extremely, or at least easier for me. So, you know, some of this stuff is a bit jargonese, I think, but hey, a lot of it, some of it certainly, is very helpful. And on the other hand, you need an accurate compass. When you're going across the desert, where there might not be any roads or signposts, you need to know which direction to go in. You need a moral compass to point the way, and that needs to be accurate. When it points to good, you need to be certain that is what it is. And if it's pointing to bad, you need to know. That's an internal asset which you use every day of your life very, very frequently. It's your moral sensibility, reaching out and finding out what's going on around you. Making moral judgments about, hey, is that okay? Do I feel all right about that? That doesn't feel right. I don't want to go there. That seems to be a bad place to be. I don't want to go. Ethical sense, moral sensibility. So ethical sense, it's very complex, this business, but some people have gone to quite a lot of effort to make it a little bit easier or simpler. So what would it be? About 2,000 years ago, Aristotle came up with 12 virtues. Now, these are advisory. You don't have to do these, folks. These are simply to advise you what you might do, and they should be taken so that you don't become unbalanced about them. They have to be taken carefully. Courage, temperance, liberality, magnificence, magnanimity, ambition, patience, friendliness, truthfulness, wit, modesty, and justice, where particularly you need a sense of right and wrong. So those give you some idea of what it might mean to be a moral agent, but they are not to be taken literally that you have to do all of them. You have to make up your own mind and make a decision about whether they're right for you or not. Are they the right thing to do? Moral sensibility, this has been around a long time as well. Moral intuition, that gut feeling. This is where, for example, gut feelings and courage come in. The courage of your convictions. Are you able and do you want to make the most of what you believe in? Faith and belief. And is there an intrinsic value in anything? I think as an artist, I think there is actually. I'll give you a very simple and silly example. If you take a block of silver, then that's got a worth to it. You can weigh it and you can cost it per ounce, and you come up with pounds and pence. You introduce a craftsman or woman, and they add value to it, aesthetic qualities. Now, how do you value that in pounds and pence? You can do, but it's given a whole host of other attractions to that object, which weren't there before. Aesthetically, the block of silver doesn't do a great deal for me, I have to say. It has a worth, but that's it. But if I look at it, the spoon is a silly example, but if I were to look at a lot of objects, they do give me, they do resonate, I do connect with them, because they talk to me and they say, I have qualities which are aesthetic. Music, I have qualities which you can listen to, theatre, qualities of presentation, and so on and so forth. I'll come to it in a moment, but how do we acquire this intuitional intelligence? Well, we've already got it. You don't need to, you haven't got to buy in. It comes with a kit. When you are born, it's there as part and parcel of who you are. But how do we recognize and use this to find our way? Can't see that, but nevertheless, there is an answer there. How do we do this? You need to develop it by using it. Now, one of the things I learned about aesthetic appreciation is you don't learn it by sitting on your backside and doing nothing about it. You've got to work at it. You've got to do it. You've got to practice it. You've got to go and see what other people are doing. You've got to be inspired by the work of other people. You've got to see role models and so on and so forth. You've got to really engage with it. And so just to ignore it or to say, well, I'm going to be nice, is not sufficient. You have to engage with it. And in schools, then personal, social, and what used to be moral education, and other elements now, like, for example, spiritual, moral, personal, and cultural education, these are all about engaging young people and preparing and enabling them to make some meaning out of their lives, not just to exist it, not just to live it, but to live it with some kind of meaning behind it. Journey to find what we're looking for. And the answer is, yeah, because it will engage you, it will keep you occupied, it will keep you thinking, it will keep you wondering, and it will keep you happy. And I'm going to read this because I didn't have time to prepare it, but if you just excuse me for a moment. We talk now about happiness, don't we, and how important it is that people should be happy. And happiness is very, very important. And I'm going to read you out some comments about happiness. So just excuse me a moment, because that, I think, if I remember, is the end of the slideshow. So you'll see my awful face. I didn't ask for this face, I can assure you. It was dumped on me. But hey, it's the only one I've got, so I have to live with it. Fortunately for me, I'm on the inside looking out, so I don't see it very often. But unfortunately for you, you're on the outside looking in. That's all you see, which is rather sad, perhaps.
Can you stop sharing, David?
Sorry?
Can you stop sharing?
I can indeed. Let me do that now. It looks, it says new share, so it looks as if I've actually, yeah, sorry, there we go. There we are. I can't find the quotations I was going to give you about being happy, but all of them point to the fact that if you want to feel satisfied, gratified, feeling that you are worthy and doing something worthwhile, a great many people have said, don't be too concerned about yourself, serve others. And again, one of the things that struck me about the Queen and the coronation was this promise, this oath to serve others. And I think that's incredibly important in terms of our own well-being, satisfaction from life, and feeling good about what we do, who we are, and the fact that we have some purpose in life. And I got quotations from a number of sources, all of which make that point, that service to others is incredibly important. And what I was going to say was, that's what we encourage the young people we work with. Part and parcel of their program is helping others. And perhaps one of the most interesting and successful projects that we've run is a group of youngsters who've been quite naughty in their time, going into an old people's home and just being with the residents there, playing dominoes, talking to them, having a bit of a laugh, a bit of a party or whatever, but just sharing with the older people. And the youngsters really, really enjoyed it and felt that it was really worthwhile. And some of them used words like joy, and it made me feel really happy. So there's a lesson to be learned from that, that it's not about us and psychoanalysis and so on. For most people, it might be needed in some circumstances, but I truly believe that if we're more outward looking, serving others, concerned about others, and being part of the brotherhood and sisterhood of humanity, we will be far happier and contented people and able to live our life in a way which gives satisfaction. So having said that, I'm now going to shut up.
David, that was absolutely amazing. Thank you so, so much. I think the joy of hearing you speak, it's a genuine sharing from your heart. And very moving to hear the wisdom and the truth and the depth of what you were sharing. And I, for one, need to listen to this again to be on our Vimeo for the whole worldwide Hidden Values family. But so many points touched me so much. And what I'm leaving with this evening is this yearning towards a search for our intuitive intelligence. We know already, and to use this to generally serve others with joy around us. So David, on behalf of all of us here at Living Values Education British Isles, a very, very warm and genuine thanks for your insights, for your wisdom, for your time, and for giving us inspiration to delve deeper into ourselves to find genuinely what is ethical sense and moral sensibility. So I'll leave it briefly there for the moment. We'll return to questions and answers in a moment. But before we stop the recording, I'd like to remind everyone who's joined us this evening that on Wednesday, the 12th of July, is our next webinar with Ruth Crick. And the theme will be self-leadership in learning, embedding values in purposeful learning experiences. So once again, David, from all of us doing Values Education, thank you very, very much.
Well, thank you for those kind words. Appreciate it.